Elephanto boys going up against Oil and Boil. And by the way, folks, remember, tomorrow is just as packed. We've got 2 best-of-5 semi-finals, best-of-7 grand finals. Let me know right now who you think is going to be your champion. In fact, I want to get thoughts on you guys. We've down to our final 8. Lidicor, we'll start with you. Who do you think is going to be thrust in the cup, the virtual cup, of course, at the end of this weekend?
I wish I knew, KP. I feel like we have a really good balance of themes. You kind of started the whole show with this. Some NA representation. And we have Elephant here from China. We have, of course, Marine Lord and Beastie, the Spaniards. What I do have to say, though, is I think we're going to learn a lot from the semifinals and even the quarterfinals to a certain extent. But when you look at the semifinals, you could potentially have the Canadians match up against Elephant if Elephant, let's say, can take them out. And of course, assuming that Elephant advances from this round, they are definitely candidates for a championship. I think if you ask most people, probably most people would bet their money on the Chimps, Beastie and Marine Lord. But don't sleep on the Canadians. Don't sleep on 3D either. The Spaniards could be sneaky underdogs in a way, which is crazy to say when you consider what they've accomplished in competitive AoE4. And then, of course, Elephant. I feel like if you're looking for that potential sneaky champion, we're looking at Elephant. These guys live and die with team games.
I mean, it's crazy. We got to highlight that element there, Tim, right? Like, the Elephanto boys made a statement taking down the Spanish boys 3-0. Now the Spanish bros are going to be going up against the Chimps, the people that everyone thinks are going to be the favorites, right? If they beat the Chimps, are we now all of a sudden full Team China? Or have you just still got to hold that NA pride flag up?
So, I do want to give a special shout out to Lidicor for his answer, because it was an incredibly political answer.
He avoided answering,
it was,
right?
Oh, yeah. It was, you listed just about every team. And you were like,
no. Let's not shame him
listen.
further. He didn't list Volder. He didn't list... He didn't list
Okay,
Gamu
I'm in science,
and
man, okay? That's what you learn in science. How to flavor up the answer, I do not know.
Hey, don't get me wrong. I know science, okay? I do. But I'm going on a limb here. No political answer, no garbage. Okay? Canada. They're taking it. Wham, puppy pot. No. They're taking it. I'm going to say it.
You just heard an American back Canada, all right? That's like,
oh wow,
oh yeah,
that never happened. So we may have a Canadian champion. I don't know if that's a curse or if that's an endorsement on the level that they can be presidents, but they'll be seen later today. Opening up, talk me quickly through this. I mean, we're looking at Oil and Boil, Elephant. We've only got 30 seconds till we're in. Very quickly, I'm going to force Lidicor to actually give a non-political answer. Who's taking this?
If you really want one answer, I'm going Elephant here. I've been very, very convinced from what I've seen so far from them, especially against the Spanish Bros. They 3-0'd them.
Now, I know you're not a Byzantine boy, Tim, not that much compared to the Roost, but do you fancy a little bit of Oil here, or are you hopping in on the Delhi Elephant train?
Honestly, I think Byzantines just play so well right now. I think they could do a lot of different things. They could do some feudal stuff if they want to. We've seen a lot of cataphract gulping, and I'm hoping everybody has their flasks in the audience, because I think we're going to see a gulp or two coming out today.
Well, we're about to get thirsty. It's going to be a bit bloodthirsty. Single elim at this stage. Best of 5 between Elephant and Oil and Boil to see who's going to make it into the semi-finals here in WTC2. Starts now.
All right. Our very first game of the day. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. On the team of Oiling Boil, we have Baltoon playing as the Mongolian Empire. In the color blue, Sass, his teammate, the Ottomans, representing Turkish Pride. Lidicor, who we got on the other side?
Here we go. CSO and Louis MT representing Elephant over here, and they're coming into these quarterfinals super hot. They actually 3-0'd the Spanish brother, which is no small feat if you think about it. These guys have been playing a lot of team games. They've been getting better and better in 1v1s as well. We've seen some really outstanding individual performances as well from them. But at the same time, you should never really count out Baltoon and Sass. I think one of the underappreciated elements of team games is that, it's not just your individual skill. It's not just the individual skill of your teammate. It's the synergy between the strategies. And speaking of strategies, we do have a Dark Age Rax coming out of here from Louis MT. The first Limitani is already out.
Yeah, and from Byzantines, you see usually that first few minutes of the game, they kind of don't want to do anything, right? They want to go Grand Winery, they want to get their oil, they want to get their cataphracts, all that kind of stuff. Not so much here. Sass going with a military school as the Ottomans, as they usually do, and going with a barracks as well. So Baltoon going with the barracks, and you saw Sass going with the barracks in a military school as well. Some Dark Age play is going to be coming out here at a time when usually, you know, you're talking about a civ like the French, you're talking about a civ like the Byzantines that might want to get left alone just a little bit. Louis got a couple limit today. He's going to move them down to the south side to try to protect his French teammate. And you know, Lidacor, for French, when they're before they get that school of cavalry up, they really want to be left alone.
Yeah, exactly. If you can disrupt that initial gold income for the French, you can just throw off that whole Knights timing that they're going for. And this is a rather aggressive opening here from Baltoon and Sass. Mongols, of course, they can go for that double production of the Spearman with the Ovu. And on the other side, Sass, he is committing very heavily into this Spearman aggression as well. If I recall correctly, I saw a Rax and a military school inside his base. And it very much seems like we're just going to have this kind of almost all-in aggression here on the French player's gold mine.
Yeah, Sass and Spearman are trying to come in, try to get some pot shots on the villagers. Limit today will end up moving them a little bit to the eastern side. I'm thinking about, too, for both of these players, for Louis and CSO, there are different things to tower if they wanted to do some kind of Dark Age tower rush or Dark Age aggression. Obviously, the French gold, that's forward, right? Louis MT also has a berry patch that Byzantines don't like to get towered either. So we'll see. Maybe they end up changing their course, but Spearman going to be able to start poking each other just a little bit. CSO getting a tower up on the left side of that gold mine. And all these limit today are doing is buying time. All right, you got 3 or 4, about 5 of these coming in. Baltoon's trying to help with this Spearman, but that tower's going up whether Oily Boy likes it or not.
It takes too much time for these Spearmen from Baltoon to arrive. By the time they got here, the tower is basically complete. And sure enough, Louis MT had to commit a lot to these Limitani, but they've accomplished what they wanted. They protected this gold mine right here, and indeed, I think the concern that you're looking at here for Baltoon is that, again, these Spearmen, they just had to walk across the whole map, and it took way too much time. Now, side note here, both of the gold mines from CSO are to the front, so this is the perfect point of aggression, and indeed, there's going to be a tower coming up here from Sass. If this goes up, you can take away both gold mines from CSO.
Oh, absolutely. And you can see the tower. If you want to go ahead and click on that tower one more time, you can see the range of where it's at. That's really important for people that are tower rushing. Take a look at this, where this dotted line is all the way around. That outpost goes up, then you're going to be able to get arrow slits. You get that 1 extra tile of range. You might be able to take hits on those villagers just to disrupt a little bit. Now, CSO is the first one to go up to Feudal. He's going to have School of Cavalry. When you're dealing with all of these spearmen that are out here, we got about 13 to 14 spearmen out here. Getting a School of Cavalry, getting some knights might not be in the best idea for a CSO, and that's exactly what he does. He ends up changing, going with an archery range. You're going to need something that shoots an arrow to take everything down there.
Yeah, this is already a good investment now for Baltoon and Sass. Forcing a range out of a French player in a team game is immensely valuable, and I was just going to say the same thing here, Tim. Louis MT is still just now aging up the Feudal Age. He's only got Limitani. The French player wants to go Knights here, which means that you don't really have anything that can kind of fight into Spearman and melee and take this tower out. So, lo and behold, this gold mine is now gone for CSO. He had to invest into a range as well. And when you look at a team game, it's fundamentally different from a 1v1. Every player just wants to go for 1 or maybe 2 types of units, but early game, you're trying to focus on just a single type of a unit. And that's not something that CSO will be allowed to do. He's going to have to pivot into some archers here, which is kind of a big win, I would say, for Boiling Boil.
Oh, you're so right, especially with the macro changes, right? I mean, you got to get your archer range that's 150 wood, and then you're making things that are 50 wood, right? When you have those knights, that's all food and gold, baby. You know, you want to get a bunch of people on food and gold. Now, CSO doesn't have that ability to. Baltoon, on the flip side for the Mongolians, went up with the deer stones. Okay, Sass is going to be going up with a twin bit of red as well. Look at that. CSO is making a little bit of a change. This is one thing that's very good when you're dealing with tower rush aggression. It's kind of like a put up or shut up kind of thing. You can take the fight to them, try to get rid of that tower, or you can just leave and go to a different gold. And that's exactly what CSO wants to do.
The villagers were pulled away from the winery. This is how critical this tower is. Louis MT is delaying his landmark simply to get this tower up. The value is getting better and better for Baltoon. And remember, Baltoon now has archers here as well. And this is where it gets problematic here for CSO and Louis MT. They're kind of being split. And I guess when you look at the Byzantines and when you look at the French, they wanted to play together. They want to have that synergistic composition. Whereas for this kind of a crazy spear plus archer rush, playing 2 separate 1v1s plays into the hands of Oiling Boy a lot more. So far, Baltoon and Sus have been doing a really good job just splitting the attention of the opponents and kind of making this game chaotic.
Yeah, and I think it's because they really understand the power spike of both of these civilizations. You know, CSO, obviously, in Feudal, you get a decent amount of knights as one of these villagers start getting picked off by the archers. It will end up going down. Tower
The wall
coming
isn't
up on the
complete.
south side. Oh, no. Can he
Yeah,
walk
he
through?
can
He's
sneak
walking
past
through
those
it.
walls.
Oh, no. This is a disaster. Villagers are getting peppered by these archer arrow spears trying to take down a little bit of the wall. The only thing that Louis has here is Limited A on the south side, and archers might end up eating that for breakfast, while Sass on the other side trying to get a raid. CSO trying to pick off reinforcements away from the Mongolians. A couple of these archers are going to be going down, but Louis got a problem here on the south side because you saw 3 of those wood bushels that are here on Himiyama. They're all right there.
And let's not forget here, for a moment, when you look at the Ottomans, they also want to have time. Again, archers are moving in, and this Khan is providing so much vision for the archers, so much pressure on Louis MT, not just in terms of villager kills, but also in general, just disrupting that economy and slowing things down.
Absolutely. And Limited A, I feel like, are really forced to take this fight when they might not want to. But CSO on the eastern side, bringing in that little charge from the Knights. Spearman might be able to get a brace there. Tower does go up. And these archers do have these limits today, but they have these knights to worry about. They're probably going to end up getting cleaned up. Khan's going to have to retreat. I think this tower, just because of the limit today having the shield wall, that's exactly what they do. They turn around and start burning it. Knights are going to follow. Ended up being a good cleanup here for Team
Yeah,
Elephant.
you have a second wave of spearmen coming in, though, and you could just focus the archers. That's what you're supposed to do if you're Baltoon. Focus down the remaining archers. Let these spearmen fight in here. And one thing is sure, Oiling Boil, as they lose the Khan, they're making this cleanup extremely costly here for Louis MT and CSO. Army count is still double right now for Baltoon and Cess. New wave of archers moving in as well. You said it's going to be a cleanup, but I'm not so sure anymore.
No, that first one might have been a cleanup, but the reinforcements definitely make it a different story. Right now, you have all of these archers and Sass bringing in some Sipahi as well. So they have a good mix, a good composition. Sass with some spearmen, some Sipahi. Now Baltoon's going all in on those archers. That south gold mine from CSO is still relatively safe, so he's going to be able to keep pumping out knights. It just depends on if he's able to pump out enough of them.
And those knights are... You don't want to use them in straight-up fights against this kind of a clump of spearmen plus archers. And remember, that whole gold mine had to be moved to the south here for Louis, or for CSO, I should say. He had to evacuate those 2 forward gold mines because of that tower. Now the knights are moving in, looking to do some damage here. The spearmen are back at home to defend, but you need a little bit more than that. This one looks a lot better now, and it looks like the knights just ran straight into his force.
Yeah, it looks like they want to take down a couple spearmen, take down this fight, and usually with spearmen, you need a 2-to-1. You know, just because of how cost-effective it is. But, oh, my God, Baltoon, he's raiding with these archers, trying to find some villagers, create some idle time. CSO's looking for reinforcements over there from the Mongolians. This tower's still up, which is pretty surprising.
The gold mine to the south. Look at the gold to the south. This is the big one. 2 defensive towers will be here, though. CSO knew that this gold mine was very crucial, and he defended it with towers in time.
Yeah, now, I mean, that gold mine's probably going to be safe for a little time, just with a couple of these. He needs you know, for how many gold villagers that he has, he's probably going to need 2 outposts to make sure it is safe. But look at that military count. Lidicore, 46 to 31. No castle age for either of these teams. They're looking to really take the fight in feudal age. And for the Ottoman Empire, you kind of alluded to this a little bit. This is a time when they kind of, you know, for feudal age, they kind of need some time to get the ball rolling. It seems like with the Mongolians, they kind of bought themselves that time, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so as well. The longer this game goes, the better Ottomans become because of those free units out there. And look at this. That's a lot of archers. And the villagers just decide to evacuate the whole place. Means that you're going to have a lot of casualties here. About 5 villagers go down. And those are casualties that CSO can ill afford. Beautiful job with Baltoon and Sass also combining that movement speed buff just to make sure they can chase down the villagers. And they might even take out this stable here just to cripple the production.
Yeah, that might be a good idea to do it. There's only 3 knights from CSO over here on the south side. Those 3 knights aren't going to do much against this entire army. All of these spearmen looking like they're going to try to take down these knights and run away. Those outposts, not long for this world. He's got more villagers on a deer pack on the south side that he was retreating just a little bit. So that's more villagers that end up going down. Louis MT trying to help his teammate, but it might be just a little bit too late. Lights are going to be able to get that charge. Man, CSO, he's sitting on about 38 villagers, but I'll be honest, about half of them probably weren't working that hard for most of this game because all the running they were doing.
Yeah, I just love how Oiling Boil is forcing engagements, and they are the ones dictating the tempo of the game. CSO has a massive amount of knights. 14 knights are no joke, but he's never really been able to raid because they constantly have to chase these forces down. Same thing with Louis MT. He's chasing this army with longbows, with archers, with Limitani, and they're never really given a straight fight. Now, of course, at the same time, once you let the Byzantines stabilize, once you let the French stabilize, this game could still swing back. But so far, Baltoon and SAS have done a really good job just kind of dictating the tempo of the game. And once you have these walls complete on the flanks for SAS, it's going to be increasingly difficult for CSO to leverage the mobility of those knights.
Yeah, because we always talk about in these team games that we've seen so far is this tower actually gets fortified. It's a little bit of burn armor on it. Villagers trying to take it down, but again, more idle time, right? You want all these villagers to be mining gold. Look, CSO's on 84 gold. He's going to want to pull knights out. He can't buy a knight right now. He's going to have to do other things. And now that outpost, yeah, might be going down, but he's still stuck on 14 knights. CSO's using them around, trying to use mobility to dictate fights, right? He's running into some spearmen. Looks like SAS is going to come in on the south side and do a little bit of a Sapahi flank here. But look at all these archers, man. I get that there's a decent amount of knights here, but I think I'm looking at somewhere around 30 archers, and that's going to be tough. They can still pepper the knights down.
Especially when you have 30 spearmen supporting them. And one thing that SAS and Baltoon have done in the recent couple of moments is shift back north. They've realized that Louis MT went to help his teammate clean up that aggression on the gold mine. So they know that Louis MT, with his slow army, it takes time for him to swing back. Look at the minimap. He's just now coming by that lake. And that's one of the things that Baltoon and SAS have been leveraging here. They've been trying to exploit that lack of mobility from Louis MT and always be the ones dictating the tempo. Now they're swinging back on the berries, on the wood. And behind this, SAS is actually starting to pile up resources. I wonder if he's thinking castle.
Yeah, I feel like Ottomans do a good transition to Castle Age just because of the fact that their military schools exist. Right, they get some of those free units. It buys them a little bit of time. It's resources they don't have to spend on more units. So he might be able to get his way to castle. But the first one going to castle is actually CSO. He stabilized his gold a little bit. 25 gold on, or 25 villagers on gold, excuse me, and going up with the Royal Institute for how many knights he has. He's trying to make them pseudo-imperial. Finally gets a raid on Sass's woodline, which is rather open. It looks like 2 villagers are going to end up going down. He might be able to find some other places. There's a deer pack over there on the northeastern side, but only 2 villagers. We'll be able to pick them off if he does see them.
Nope. Another raid going on towards the base of Baltoon, but at the same time, direct push is happening, and that Castle Age gets cancelled here.
Oh my god. Yeah, Royal Institute just left a shamble of itself. Those outposts are not going to be long for this world. Military count about 100 for Baltoon and SAS. So those outposts aren't going to be able to burn if they were fortified or otherwise. Got a raid going on from CSO at the Mongolians, trying to take down where some of those pastures are. So at the same time, Cal making us look good with that picture-in-picture, seeing that Mongolian raid. But at the same time, the big fight is right here. Sapahi trying to get around to the longbowmen, trying to get around to the archers. I think Baltoon's got enough archers to head through the shield wall of the Limit today. Those spearmen are just being fodder out in the front, and it looks like a lot of these Limit today are going to end up going down. Those archers are going to be left, and we know Lidacor, those longbowmen, they're one of the slowest units in the game. You get those out of position, you're in big trouble. Sapahi are going to get you pretty quick.
Baltoon took a big beating in here, though. He had to migrate most of his eco to his teammate's base, and I don't know who ended up being the winner of these last few moments. His villager count is now looking abysmal. These knights are still reigning supreme. And CSO is going to be up to Castle Age. I feel like now Baltoon and SAS have to make something happen here. SAS himself has a lot of idle time, has to migrate all the gold miners here. CSO, right now, he's kind of carrying his team with these cavalry raids. That's really the only thing that's keeping them alive.
I think you're exactly right. I mean, look at the economic count. It's 100 to 81. Now CSO going to Castle Age. He did lose a little bit of villagers, but he will be able to get some of those very important upgrades from the Royal Institute. Veteran Royal Knights obviously coming in. Royal Bloodlines is 490 gold, 210 food, 490 gold. He's going to be able to click that pretty much immediately. Canted Saddles, he'll even have enough for. So being in that Castle Age, making sure you're getting knights that could help propel you in the opposite direction. Khan being a little bit annoying there on the northern side. It looks like SAS, he was hoarding resources a little bit, but now is committing himself to feudal CSO. More villagers running away, trying to get to that lumber camp over there on the south side, but ending up having to vacate CSO with these night raids in multiple different areas. The presence of mind, CSO and Louis MT, they have some villagers that are moving around, some of those berry villagers. Oh my God. Everywhere you look, there's a raid. Villagers are running for their lives. Oh my God, there's another one.
I can't keep track of everything that's happening here, Tim. Raids
trying.
left and right.
I'm trying.
Every single player is running for their lives with those villagers.
Oh my God. Look at it. I got to know how many workers are actually going down here on both sides. Even gold mine on the bottom. That's 5 more villagers that are going to go down by an outpost. There's a couple outposts here by SAS that are getting ruined. We haven't seen any big fights, right? We just saw that little one while CSO was going up with the Royal Institute. But this is trying to raid your opponent to death. This is what it feels like. Throughout most of this game, it's just finding villagers to kill. We did see 100 to 80 in terms of economic count. Now, all of a sudden, it's even again.
Yeah, but you have a bunch of villagers trapped in these towers here, Tim. We're getting reset back to Dark Age villager counts with this whole thing. And look at this. Royal Bloodlines is not a thing right now for CSO. His eco is so heavily damaged that he simply couldn't afford it. And all these clumps of villagers could be exposed once again. In fact, Louis is shifting south here to protect his teammate. But as he does so, his hunt might be exposed. I don't know where to look. We could be back to 50 villagers each team.
Yeah, I want to give a special shout out to Cal because he's catching just about every raid that we're seeing the best that he can. More villagers moving away from that deer. Oh my God. It's just like these I hope they have wheelbarrow at least. Like get to step it. If you're a villager, oh my God. If you're a villager collecting a resource, know that you're in danger in this game in Himiyama. More villagers going down here on that south lumber mine. Look at that villager count on both sides going down. We're in the 70s now. We're almost 20 minutes into this game, and we have an economic count of both sides in the 70s. Looks like the south side is going to be somewhere where Team Elephant's going to try to trap them. Here we have those Royal Knights of the veteran variety. A lot of archers back here going to be able to take down some of these limits today. Spearmen trying to get there, not going to be fast enough. And now they have a retreat angle over here on the western side if they want to take it. But this is a 2v1 situation. They might be able to take this army down if they end up turning around.
Yeah, that would be bad for Baltoon over here. He's actually aging up with the Coral Die. Although, once again, the villager counts are so abysmal on both sides. And you know who's benefiting from that? The Ottomans.
Oh, yeah.
Because as much as SAS lost a bunch of eco, he's still getting those units for free. And now they're chasing down all these archers. It's just mutual annihilation. We're down to like 150 combined population on each side.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be, remember the Ottomans of seasons old, like season 7, where they would lose some villagers and they're like, yeah, I don't really care because I get units for free anyway. So the Ottomans might be able to play into that. They only have 41 villagers total. Looks like Knights trying to get around, trying to take down some of these Sipahi, and we'll be able to. We got a little archer fight around a forest line as well on the western side, but these are veteran Royal Knights, Lidakor, and that is feudal age spearmen. Now they're all dead.
If you would have to summarize the economical situation in this entire game, I feel like that's the picture to look at.
Oh my God, it's just been it's been a disaster. You know, how many workers ended up getting killed? And you know, the crazy thing is all of those are obviously important. You know, we talk about the Ottomans having free units, all that kind of stuff, but all of these civilizations are sitting on one town center, right?
Another raid.
It's not like it. Oh my God. Where
Another raid this time around on Louis' hunters. He had a couple of archers nearby, but again, a couple of villagers fall. We do have to highlight, though, Tim, CSO managed to retain his knights, and I think that's a big difference maker. Those are now fully upgraded Castle Age knights. They do heal back up as well. That's by far the most powerful force on the field. Janissaries are coming in, though, so there is going to be a direct answer to it. It's just the fact, when you look at Baltoon, for instance, he's on 5 army compared to Louis MT's 30. I feel like now Elephant is kind of pulling ahead in terms of army.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think they have the quality as well for SAS getting those Janissaries. He hit the, what I like to call for the Ottomans, the oh crap button, where you just get 2 Janissaries for every military school you have. Doc's going to get burned down. There's a demo. Let's see it. Let's see that quick boom, boom. Oh, yeah, but all those limit today, they don't give a damn, brother. They're probably all sitting on 5 health. They would be able to take down that Doc if they were able to. CSO continuing to try to get around some of these raids. That Mongolian Empire, though, that base is really compact with that gold mine, with those pastures as well. So if you get some outposts around, maybe with some springloads, might be able to help. Curl Tie wheeling its way from east to west, hopefully trying to get into a big battle. If there is ending up being a big battle, hopefully he has the curl tie in there as well. But these are just a lot of skirmishes, a lot of raids going on, Lidacor.
I love the walls coming in here from SAS. He's understanding that they don't really have the mobility right now. And he's still in Feudal Age against all these Castle Age Knights. He's getting those walls up to prevent those break-ins. Now, Castle Age is coming in very soon for Louis MT as well, and that will put them on 2 Castle Ages versus just 1. SAS is kind of stuck in Feudal Age right now. Baltoon is kind of starting to shift into crossbows, though. That would be a good answer to all these knights out here. You also have the Janissaries come in, a couple more Spy, and Kurotai is no joke here. You got to be cautious if you're Louis MT and CSO. If they end up losing a battle here, that's the perfect setup for Oiling Boil. The ecos are kind of even-ish. It's just a matter of Louis MT and CSO having a better army right now.
And this is when I feel like the mobility for CSO is the most important, right? The curl tie is going to run around and try to get these big fights and establish itself. But if you have the mobility, you can keep raiding. You can keep doing these things. And that's exactly what he's trying to do. A lot of outposts over there by that wood line. Looks like he's going to be able to take down another raid over there on the northern side. CSO, he's got his head on a swivel this game, man. Just having knights in all of these different areas getting raids. SAS's walls are going to prove to be very important just to make sure he doesn't get any of those raids. Baltoon has some Castle Age units. You talked about the crossbows, but here are some Lancers over here trying to find some of their own raiding ability. It looks like they're going to come up dry by these outposts, though. Oh,
this is the biggest problem with the Mongols in team games, though. You don't have these walls, and you're very susceptible to these raids. Nice little response from Baltoon, though, with the crossbows. He still needs to be very concerned about all these raids going on. And look at this. A wall across the map all the way to that pond by SAS. They're just trying to use that one player they have to wall off the map and prevent these run-ins. If these Knights continue running into the eco of Baltoon and SAS, they are going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I think so too. As SAS's dock ends up being the highlight point of Himiyama right now. He went for that late dock. Now going up to Castle Age with the MIA. So they're going to get some free siege as well. Ooh. Louis MT with the Golden Horn Tower looking to get some free mercenaries. He went with the Western mercenary contract. We saw longbows before. So maybe he'll be able to add some Lance Connect as well. Another villager going down just by some of the raids from Baltoon. Economic count starting to rise out of both players, 104 and 92 respectively in favor of Team Elephant, but Baltoon looking to do something about it, create a little bit of villager idle time now with Castle Age. Some of these veteran limits today are really going to help you. You can get some of these veteran longbows to take down the crossbowmen of Baltoon. These army compositions, I think once we get a big fight, it's going to be crazy.
I'm actually surprised how quick SAS is to Castle Age. A couple of minutes ago, Louis was close in resources, SAS was nowhere close, and now they're aging up at essentially the same time. This is not a good fight for CSO, though. He's going to lose 3 knights here, and remember, his eco is not, awesome, and now he's fighting into Spearmen over here. Sure enough, those are Castle Age troops against Feudal Age ones, but I don't know how much you want to lose these expensive knights against the Spearmen here. He's on 2 TCs now, so he's trying to escalate his eco a little bit more. But when you look at the army count now, it's neck and neck. And remember, as much as Baltoon and Cess are down by approximately 20 eco, you do have all those free units coming out here for the Ottoman player.
Yeah, and that's the math, right? It's with how many military schools he has, how many villagers does that outweigh? And that depends on what unit you go for out of the military school. I'm curious what he's deciding to go for it now. He does have a pretty good army composition now. He still has Janissaries. It looks like he's added crossbowmen out of those military schools, which is going to help, especially against some of these Royal Knights that are here. These Spearmen are still of the Feudal Age variety. It looks like he's getting that upgrade. You can see it on the left part of your screen. He needs that Castle Age Spearman upgrade as quickly as possible. He's had so many Spearmen that are going down. This is supposed to be this quote-unquote defensive unit, to try to take down these knights, try to take down these raids. They're not really doing anything. So he's going to be able to take down that wall on the south side, maybe get a raid going. Louis MT's coming in around the curl tie. There's only a small group of crossbowmen here and a lot of archers. He might want to turn around and try to take some of them out. But now the rest of the army, you can see them coming in on the northern side. right? You see a lot of these crossbow. They do have a little bit of increased damage, so they might be able to rip through some of those archers. Sass coming in on the south side as well. Spearman, he's got some Janissaries back there. He's got some Metters playing in the key of G, trying to get that attack speed up just a little bit. I can see it, that raid on the south side, all those farm fields from Sass. It looks like he's trying to get these spearmen that are now of Castle Age. I just don't know if that's going to be enough. That's a lot of idled food villagers over here right by the hometown center. And those knights, now that they're in Castle Age, they don't give a damn about being in the middle of that town center because they'll just run around.
Sass is getting butchered back at home. He's down to just 46 eco, the lowest in the game. But at the same time, they keep pushing onwards. Looks like Sass and Baltoon lost track of each other here. His force is getting cleaned up, losing some valuable Janissaries. They're trying to march down to the opposing side of the field. Those knights are kind of trapped-ish inside Sass's base, though. If he can find some cleanups, there might still be some opportunities to get back into this game. But Baltoon and Sass have been losing a lot of economy recently. They have to find a way to make up for it.
Yeah, and I think with how many knights there are, you can see them trying to take down that wall on the northern side. They might be able to escape just because of how many there are, right? They can take down a fortified or a palisade wall pretty quickly. Excuse me. Monastery from CSO housing 3 relics. That's really important for the French, right? You need some of that gold to get more of them knights, but that's going to end up going down. I think this is a force, Lidicor, that CSO and Louis MT, they don't really want to take straight up right now.
Yep.
It looks pretty big.
It is. You can see that Louis is kind of shadowing this force. They're looking for an overwhelm. They know that Baltoon and Sass cannot really escape out of here. In fact, I think at this point, Baltoon and Sass might not even want to escape. They just want to make this game chaotic, make this fight very costly. The Spearman front line is missing from this fight. A lot of the crossbows will take the damage here from the Knights, but you still want to be cautious. Those Knights are super expensive. And right now, for Baltoon and Sass, they just want to take as many enemies with them as possible.
And I mean, this was perfect synchronicity from CSO and Louis MT. Louis didn't take that fight because he knew the Knights were coming, right? He knew the Knights were coming. They were ever going to take down a decent amount of units. Khan is going to be going down on the east side. GG's in chat as well. CSO still has a raiding Knight area over there on what looks like at the northeastern side of the map, but Baltoon might be able to clean that up pretty quickly. Military count now drastically reduced for Baltoon and Sass. We have a military count now of 104 to 53 and continuing to rise for Baltoon and Sass. So just because they ended up cleaning that up in CSO's base, might this be the time to strike, especially when Baltoon, he's got a couple markets here on the northern side. 30 minutes into the game, we're going to be starting to get some donkeys out here.
Baltoon and Sass are now in a terrible spot. Remember, they needed to make something happen with that counterattack because Sass lost so many villagers. They're down by 40 eco. Janissaries, though, could be great to clean up this force of Knights. Indeed, Knights will think twice about this. Trade could help compensate, but it takes time to build this up. And remember, the northern side is still wide open. Army count heavily in the favor of Louis MT and CSO as well. And that lack of mobility is also haunting Baltoon and Sass. I talked about this in the initial portion of the game. Baltoon and Sass did a really good job just making their opponents chase them. Now it's the other way around. It's CSO forcing the opponents to chase, and that's part of the reason why Baltoon and Sass cannot really combine forces and take decisive fights.
And I mean, Lidicor, look at the unit compositions on both sides. There's only one Civ out of the 4 right now that has a unit on a horse, and that's CSO, right? With these Knights, he's going to be able to try to use that mobility, take the fights that he necessarily wants to, and you can see he's looking to kind of split the difference between Sass and Baltoon. We see that all the time. Meganel just popped out over there on that eastern side. If you can get good hits on this Archer mass, now remember, these Castle Age Mangonels, not as good as they used to be, right? You're going to need a decent amount of them to try to take him down. Baltoon trying to get this kind of raid force. He's got some men-at-arms to deal with the limit to Nay. He has some crossbowmen that might help rip through that shield wall. Baltoon trying to add some men-at-arms just to get some armor, just to add some sort of front line. But I'm telling you, with these men-at-arms, even though there's only a couple spearmen from Sass, I think those Knights are going to make quick work out of them. What do you think?
Yeah, it's not just the numbers for CSO and Louis MT. It's also the quality of those troops. The army value is just so much more in their favor. Now, they have to be cautious. They cannot just dive headlessly into these crossbows. Those are expensive units. A castle drop now coming in on the right side. And it looks like they are just going to dive Baltoon's base here. Baltoon's forces are actually out on the map trying to harass Louis MT, but so many villagers getting caught in the middle of this. Baltoon and Sass throwing the towel, and Elephant remain undefeated here. Wow. They
Wow.
3-0'd the Spanish team, Vortex and Lucifron. And now it's a wonderful win here, really, in game number 1. It looked dicey for quite some time. In fact, there were moments where Baltoon and Sess looked extremely strong, but you gotta look back at those cavalry raids and how CSO was able to start dictating the tempo of the game once he got to Castle Age.
You know, you're definitely. It was pretty sketchy, wasn't it, in the beginning?
Mm-hmm.
I really loved the initiative that Oiling Boyle had. I think it was just after that they couldn't capitalize on it, right? You had, you made CSO move gold mines, which was great. You made Louis MT make a Dark Age barracks as a Byzantines and add Limitine, something they don't really like to do, but once they got their feet out from under them, once they even though they lost a couple villagers, it wasn't a game-breaking loss. CSO was able to counter raid on the other side, right? To make sure that economic count wasn't lowered too much compared to the other side. And then all of a sudden, you're right, just the quality of units ended up reigning supreme. So very good job by Elephant. Liticor, these are your boys. These are the ones that you picked non-politically. So getting that 1-0 victory, it's got to feel a little good, a little feather under the cap, isn't it?
I feel like one thing that we got to highlight is CSO's ability to keep those knights alive. He's taken a big beating throughout this game, but one thing that he never really lost was that big ball of knights. You never had an instance where he went down to 5 knights and he had to rebuild from scratch. It was always an instance of him essentially saying, okay, I have taken a big beating on my eco, but I still do have my knights helping out, and those allowed him to compensate for these losses. Now, going into game number 2, Byzantines is a civilization that Oiling Boyle wanted, but it will be taken away from them. They do have the Iobids, though, in combination with Jeanne d'Arc, and on the other side, we have a combination that I haven't really seen so far in this tournament, English and Ottomans. In general, we haven't really seen that many Ottomans being utilized so far.
Yeah, I'm pretty surprised. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know the team game meta Civ picks and the 1v1 meta Civ picks might end up being a little different, but the Ottomans doesn't seem like a Civ that you would pick in either right now. I mean, obviously, the Ottomans have this good late game potential, with great bombards and all of that kind of stuff, but we just saw them in Dark Age trying to get aggressive with that military school in the barracks, and then we saw them in Feudal Age kind of translate. It felt like to me, Liticor, the Ottomans kind of fell flat in Feudal. Maybe Louis MT and CSO have a different story, but as far as Oiling Boyle goes, I really, really like the Ayubid pick. I think as a dark horse or dark camel, I guess, I really like the Ayubids. I think they're one of the best, if not the best, team game Civ right now. And I think it all stems down to the Desert Raiders. It shakes up the team game meta where you're talking about, okay, here's a Knight Civ. Okay, here's an Archer Civ. Come together. You see Knights and Archers beat heads at each other. Ayubids are like, not so fast, my friend. I have these Desert Raiders with that melee damage that's going to be able to take you out.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing here. I wholeheartedly agree with your assessment on the Iobids. I feel like they have a lot of flexibility, first and foremost, with all the wings and options they have when it comes to aging up. And that just gives them, again, a lot of flexibility in team games. It's, in general, a good thing to have in 1v1s when you look at that flexibility. But in team games, it's even more valuable because you can really adapt your playstyle to the circumstances. How is your teammate doing? How much are you winning? Those kinds of things help a lot with the Iobids. And again, Camel Lancers, immensely valuable unit. We have seen how Oiling Boyle kind of struggled to keep track of those knights raiding them, for instance. Camel Lancers can kind of do the same thing. Camel Lancers can actually help clean up those raids. It's not like they're going to see a lot of Feudal Age Knights over here, but you never know about the English. Maybe we're going to see a fast castle play into straight White Tower Knights. And then you supplement this with Jeanne d'Arc, a civilization that is really good when it comes to causing a lot of early game chaos, damage with the knights as well. It's going to be interesting to see if Oiling Boyle goes down this ultra aggressive playstyle again and tries to play it heavy feudal with the Desert Raiders and Jeanne d'Arc Knights, or whether they have this kind of a 1-2 punch where JD would be your early game setup just to buy some time for the Iobith player to get to Castle Age and get that death ball rolling.
And with Jeanne d'Arc, they want to use Jeanne d'Arc in feudal, right? Once you get to level 2, you're going to need that 500 XP. You're not getting it from sitting there collecting berries, sitting there shooting a couple boars. You got to take a fight, man. You got to get in there with some archers and Iobids in the feudal age, have a good unit with those desert raiders. But because of, I want to go back to the flexibility of the Iobids. I'm not done with the Iobids, by the way. I think they're fantastic. The flexibility of Iobids, you're exactly right, because they could do that kind of fast castle thing, right? So there's multiple different strategies. It's like, hey, you want to take a fight in feudal with Jeanne d'Arc? Go for it. You want to use Jeanne d'Arc to be a distraction in feudal while you go up to fast castle with camel lancers? That's a viable option too. You know, I think on the other side with English, the longbowmen are going to end up becoming helpful if they do go with some kind of feudal. English is usually the archer civ in this team game meta. Getting enough longbowmen, you could snipe Jeanne d'Arc, you could snipe down desert raiders. That might be the key to Elephant's success, but we'll wait and see. They're up 1-0 now. They could force a match point in game 3 if they win on this map, Cliffside. I'm excited. Lidicor, I love Cliffside. Let's dive right in. I want to vote Cliffside back into the map pool for the next ranked season. Here we go. Baltoon playing as Jeanne d'Arc on the northwestern side. Sass playing as the Iobids as his teammate. On the northeastern side, Lidicor, I'm going to let you introduce them again. It's your team, brother. Tell me who's on the other side.
Well, it's not my team, but it's a team that I'm very, very hyped up about, and I think they've showed a lot of really cool stuff in a previous game, kind of going through adversity, and now they are the ones leading this series, CSO and Louis MT, with the Ottomans and the English combined. Not a combination that you very commonly see. Usually in team games, you have kind of a cavalry-ish player and an archer-ish player. And that's not necessarily straightforward when you look at these two civilizations. If I would have to wager, I would probably lean towards more of a cavalry-heavy approach for the English player, just leveraging that extra food eco, and then your Ottoman player being the archer, later on Janissary player. But it's going to be interesting to see how much that actually holds true on a map like Cliffside. This map is definitely one where if you wall off the flanks, you can play with these slow-moving death ball compositions. Late game, this is an English map. Late game, I would dare to say this is an Ottoman map. We've actually seen the Delhi reign supreme with elephants on this map. So the longer this game goes, the less relevant cavalry will be, I feel.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty interesting point because you're exactly right. Those flanks are very easily wallable, right? The natural cliffs in the middle of the map make it that way, right? So we'll see if it ends up getting to that late game. Now, Sass going with the culture wing to start 2 minutes in. Only costing 225 food, 125 gold. Takes 20% less time. So he's trying to get to feudal age as quickly as possible. What do you think about this choice, Lidicor?
Interesting. I don't have any strong thoughts about it, but I can see why a rush to feudal age in general is something that you want to facilitate on this map. Again, you can start walling off some of those crossing points at early stages of the game. So as time goes on, your opportunities for aggression grow smaller and smaller. So in a way, first feudal kind of means that you're going to have that aggression potential. You can actually harass hunters out there, for instance. I just want to highlight, Louis MT went for the hunt, which is pretty far away from his TC, but it just goes to show how significant for him was this whole hunt-based approach. He's actually picked up survival techniques. So this is really a build which relies on that extra influx of food from the hunt. Just wants to essentially pile up a bunch of food. And Louis is actually keeping villagers on the gold here despite going Council Hall. I wonder if he's trying to go fast castle. We talked about that in the pregame. English is definitely not a bad civilization on a map like this to rush castle and get a White Tower Knights production style opening.
Yeah, I mean, fast castle is definitely a play with knights like this. Louis MT's going with Council Hall. I would have expected for a fast castle, maybe I'm just really tunnel visioned into a 1v1 meta, but usually for fast castle, they like Abbey the Kings, right? They like that free king just to provide that little bit of raiding potential while they go up. Going with Council Hall, another thing about the English, I don't know if you guys remember who Igus is. He was somebody who was an AoE 4 player back in seasons 1, 2, 3, a long time ago. He came up with this build on Altai as the English, going with that deer and survival techniques. Louis extended a little bit too far for it, but we'll see if that food potential is enough to get him going there. He only has 2 on gold. I'm not sure if he's really pushing for that 600 or maybe some upgrades, but Sass looking to take the battle in Feudal Age. You can see it. I think that Culture Wing was just to get up as quickly as possible. He's not making Desert Raiders, however. You can see it on the right side of your screen. He's just going with normal foot archers.
Interesting opening to go foot archers. It looks like a semi-aggressive play here for Feudal Age from Baltoon and Sass, but I'm not super sold on it yet. One thing I'm looking at here is that the bases are very, very compact. Luyent is actually pulling all the hunters back, so now that he knows that there is probably going to be aggression coming his way, he's going to pull them back. It's just he tried to leverage the hunt as much as possible. Now he's going to go back home into safety. So I wonder how much damage you can do with this Knights and Archer play if you're Baltoon and Sass, because you're going to have a gold mine tower over here from CSO. English bases are notoriously difficult to push into. I'm just struggling to see the opportunities for Baltoon and Sass to actually do damage with these Knights and Archers. Knights are fine. You kind of expect that from the French player. It's more along the lines of heavily investing into these Archers if you're the Ayobids.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious as to what they're going to do. I think for Sass, he's probably thinking these Desert Raiders are a little bit too expensive. They might get peppered down by these longbowmen, so he goes with foot archers instead. He really just needs them to take down some spearmen. But because he didn't go military wing as the Ayobids, right? If he had Desert Raiders, he wouldn't be able to do this. And that's what he's using with these foot archers, making a battering ram, trying to take down that tower. This is aggression to the max. 2 archery ranges from Sass. Baltoon going with consistent knight production. He's got 4 knights, 1 in the queue. Jeanne d'Arc went for the woman at arms. If I could see that correctly, I'm pretty sure that she did. Yes, she did. So
yeah,
we'll be able to try to help with some of those spearmen as well. While English, he's gonna have to come over here and help his teammate out because that outpost is probably gonna go down.
Yeah, I want to revise my opinion on this aggression. I don't think that Baltoon and Sass are going to kind of play all-in-ish at this point, but that's starting to be the pattern, I feel. And that has been the case in the previous game as well. They've played very aggressive, and now they're going to do the same thing here as well. They're playing into Knights, they're playing into Archers as well. They're pushing the Ottoman player so far, and, you know, you can do a lot of damage with such an early aggression. It's just a matter of whether you fully commit to it or you just want to use this to facilitate the setup for a slightly later later play. Maybe go to Castle Age. I think that's going to be the biggest question mark. Are we seeing a genuine full all-in here from Baltoon and Sass?
Yeah, or you think it's some kind of like fake thing or something like that. I could definitely see that happening. CSO trying to take down one of these archers, but we'll be walking in the opposite direction. Just trying to take down some of these reinforcements as one of these archers go down. Sass in total has 18 archers, some of them working their way down south to the actual front line. And we'll be continuing to push. But Jeanne d'Arc being in feudal, he's got the archers, he's got the knights. You're going to be able to do what I like to call whirly doos and do some kind of AoE. You have Divine Restoration out of Jeanne d'Arc as well. This is a feudal age push that might prove to be difficult. And they're going for a good target, right? Sass has his ram right on the military school. It means, hey, we might be creating some idle time. We might be stopping those Ottoman villagers. But if we don't stop those free units, we're really not doing the damage we need to do.
And as it was highlighted to us by our observer Cow, the stone mine is also taken away here from CSO. And one thing I want to highlight is Ottomans take time to build up their forces. They're actually pretty slow to start feudal age because it takes time to leverage those military schools. We haven't really gotten to that point where CSO got a massive ball of units out. And this military school is going to go down. There are no more on the horizon. Love how CSO is using the little forces he has, though. Those Sipahi intercepting reinforcements, that's exactly what you got to do in a position like this. Just make sure you buy yourself a little bit more time. Now the Knights are reacting to this, though. And as much as in the previous game, the Ottomans couldn't fight into the Knights with the Sipahi, it's the case here as well. Those Sipahi cannot take on the Knights directly.
No, and I think with how many knights that are there, right, from Baltoon, he's got 10 knights. He will be trying to get more, I would imagine, as he keeps going. He had to move his food a little bit to that deer pack, a little bit to the north of his base. So once that ends up materializing, we'll get a decent amount of knights. But this is a good bodyguard service for Jeanne d'Arc right now with all of these knights. Sipahi, again, trying to take some of these reinforcements. Begs the question, with how many of these archers go down, might that be 5 or 6 archers that will help turn the tide of whatever battle they want to take? Sass's ram going to be trying to go. Took a look at that blacksmith, said, maybe we'll keep you going. You can go ahead and hammer that anvil all you want. Going to take down some of those stables. With that military school going down, it's a lot like when a Civ gets a relic, right? It's very good to get once you build it, but you need that time in order to get the payoff of whatever resources that you're getting. So with that military school going down, with the CSO, it's very difficult to try to get another 50 stone or whatever it is to get another military school. It's just a pain to rebuild.
Exactly. And again, it takes time for CSO to build up his forces. He's been doing a really good job leveraging the mobility of the Sipahi here. In fact, looks like Baltun and Sass were caught sleeping for a moment. They will end up losing this ram here to the Sipahi. A stable goes down in return, though, and still, I think one of the key things to highlight is that now Baltun and Sass are fully committed to this. This is almost an all-in style play. They still need to be careful, though. They are kind of in enemy territory, and we've seen that in a previous game. If you get caught off guard and overwhelmed in enemy territory, you could easily get cleaned up, and this is a very bad position for Sass to be in. Gets caught in the middle of nowhere with these archers. Best he can do is just try to focus that matter. Knights come in time, though, to salvage the day.
And even just that little bit of micro, Glittercore, you know, taking down 1 or 2 of these archers, making sure your Sipahi are safe and healed. But now, this is the time for Oiling Boil. This is put up or shut up time. You got your military mass. You ended up being aggressive. You don't want this game to go longer than it actually is already. So let's take the battle. They go right under the town center of CSO. Knights trying to get a charge in on some of those villagers. There's only 3 spearmen here in defense. Some villagers running away on the south side. English mobility, not quite there, of course, because you have those longbowmen, because you have those spearmen, which are really difficult. So they're moving their way from west to east. Villagers continuing to move south. They're safe for the time being. Now, we have a force of Louis MT with longbowmen peppering down some archers. CSO going to be able to help just a little bit. Those archers better take down some of those spearmen, boy. Jeanne d'Arc, get your Divine Wrath off. That's a good whirly-do, girl. Going to be able to take him out, but there's 2 of these spearmen. Jeanne d'Arc, gone. 250 gold in order to get her back. And I think there was just too many spearmen here. The archers didn't have enough to pepper down all of these spearmen. 1 Divine Wrath was just overall okay, but there's still spearmen in this fight. The Knights can't do anything for Baltun, so he's got to get out. Overwhelming victory and solid defense from Team Elephant.
I feel like I'm seeing the same thing that we've seen in game number 1, and this is the concern, or the point of concern I highlighted here for Baltun and Sass. They have stayed there for very, very long. And Louis MT was totally untouched in this entire process. He did whatever he wanted. So Louis MT and CSO were just waiting for that critical fight to be ready. And when it was, they had the overwhelming numbers. Credit CSO, by the way, for slipping out with basically all the villagers. He lost 1 or 2 vills. If they lost like a dozen villagers as, as he was fleeing with the vills before the fight, this could have been a lot worse. But now, the villager count is totally fine for CSO and Louis. They saved basically all the villagers, but they also managed to clean up this force. And this is the problem with kind of playing an all-in style like this. 1 bad fight and you're gone, and the Knights are heavily beaten up here. They're slower than the Sipahi. Sipahi actually do a really good job just chasing them down and getting away with a couple of freebies here.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're the team of Oiling Boil, what do? Right? You just went all in on this map. Sass is continuing to produce archers as quickly as he can. He already has another 25 out on the battlefield. Baltun continuing to make lights. It looks like Sassy's trying to hoard for castle just a little bit, but the thing of it is, if you spend 1,800 resources on castle and you don't use it making units, you have the other side who just had that great hold that's going to trample you. And probably that's what CSO and Louis MT are going to try to do. Now, these fights, they're not on the side of Team Elephant anymore, Lidicor. They're on the side of Oiling Boil, so he's going to try to do it. Oh, CSO's trying to go up to Castle. I think you were trying to point that out to me.
Yeah, exactly. CSO will go Castle here. Meanwhile, army counts are kind of equalizing. I love the walls from both sides, though. So if you're CSO and Louis, you still need to respect the Knights. You still have 12 Knights out here for Baltun. Needs to make sure that those are healed back up, though, because a lot of them are heavily beaten up. And if you are Sass and Baltun, you just lost a critical fight. You want to have some walls up, and you want to slow this aggression down. it's not ideal for Jeanne d'Arc and the Iobits to drag a game like this. That longbow being cheeky as ever. Although if you have Wheelbarrow, you can actually chase this down. You probably want to pull back the low HP Veil just to make sure you don't have it sniped. Nice low. Oh, what? Okay. Make up your mind, Baltoon, because this is the worst thing that you can do.
Oh my god. Dude, honestly, Baltoon, do it or don't. You know? Just make...
I think you might have misclicked.
Yeah, I think you might have too. But that villager will go down. Probably a second one will be going down. Cal using accurate picture-in-picture just to see if those villagers have their lives longer in this game or otherwise. Oh, now they're moving. I know this is just the picture-in-picture, the small frame, but when those French villagers, those Jeanne d'Arc villagers get pissed off enough, my god, are they dangerous. Now Baltoon and Sass trying to make a little bit of a push in feudal as well. Looks like that archer count ended up remasked. The knights are there with Jeanne d'Arc. They're just going right in again.
This is a good push. It's a really good timing. They actually kind of sense this Castle Age coming in from the other side. They cannot intercept the landmark, but the villagers are caught in the middle of nowhere, and this might be the first opportunity to really beat up those vills. And all the gold miners were idled out there, so there is not much gold for CSO to get upgrades here.
No, this is a really good timing for Baltoon and Sass. I agree. Let's just see if it ends up being enough. Louis MT has so many units. He's got 47 military units of the 56. He's got spears, he's got longbowmen. Spears are going to be able to get a brace on one of those knights. I think Jeanne d'Arc just might have hit level 3. There it is.
Oh.
That white horse, the Maid of Orleans, is not that snipeable anymore. Going to be using Jean's champions to try to help with those spearmen. Going to be able to be as a buffer for defense against some of those longbowmen as well. CSO trying to get a raid over here, and I think this is the highlight of the entire series. You know, CSO just raiding while they're getting attacked on the other side. And if you're a lower elo player, you want to improve, you're worried about being defensive, sometimes the best defense is a gut offense. Get yourself in on some of those counter raids. Jeanne d'Arc trying to get in, getting a divine whirly-do on some of those spearmen. Only a couple spearmen ended up getting hit. Archers continuing to chase. Knights continuing to chase. Louis MT, he's just by himself here, Lidicor. He don't want this smoke.
Yeah, but look at all this damage now. We had this in the previous game as well. How long can you run away from knights? At 36 villagers, Louis wanted to age as well. And for the first time in this game, these knights are really looking to just punch on those villagers. There's nowhere to go. And on the other side, Baltoon and Sass lost a bunch of villagers as well, but these casualties might just be too much. Love how the knights are being split just to chase these. The archers are a little slow to catch up. Baltoon and Sass, if they can clean all these villagers, they'll be in such a good position, but so far they've only gotten a couple of kills. It takes a little too much time to actually kill all these vills with the knights chasing. Wheelbarrow is coming in clutch here, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even when you're the English, getting Wheelbarrow is so important just because of the farms, right? But looks like Sass's archers will be trying to take them out. Sapahi, again, you talked about the mobility of them, right? Being a little bit quicker. Will be able to. Jeanne d'Arc continuing to stay alive, getting those nice little +8s for a lot of these spearmen that end up going down. It looks like CSO trying to help his buddy out just a little bit with all those villagers that ended up going down. Baltoon with another raid over here right in front of the town center. There's a mangonel largely undefended. Louis MT switched his wood line over there to the eastern side. More villagers going down for him. He's at an economic count of 49, but might we see that get decreased? Jeanne d'Arc just with a little bit of health, but we'll be able to still gather that XP if Louis MT doesn't look to target her in the near future. Louis MT is continuing to back up. He has so many idle villagers, Lidicor. He's stuck with 1,600 total resource. Jeanne d'Arc goes down yet again. Trying to get another Divine Wrath. Maybe got a little greedy there, but a lot of these spearmen will end up going down. Sapahi and knights coming out from the Ottoman Empire on the eastern side, looking to make quick work of these archers. So, yeah, you did a little damage, right, as the rest of these archers get cleaned up. You did a little damage, Lidicor. Do you think it's enough, though?
I have very mixed feelings about this, Tim, because it looked so much better. And again, I want to highlight that Louis MT, given the circumstances, he did a really good job preserving his villagers. Same goes for CSO. At the same time, Louis MT had so much idle time as well. He was running around for the last 2 minutes, and he lost almost everything. He's at 16 army. Look at his resources. He wanted to age. He was caught as he was about to age. This raid delayed his Castle Age quite a bit. And most importantly, he lost every unit he wanted to upgrade. Now he's about to invest a bunch of resources into aging up to Castle Age, but he's going to have no army to show for it. Look at the army count, though. Knights are coming in once again, and a lot of the villagers across the map are heavily beaten up as a consequence of these raids. Eventually, those villagers will start dying very quickly because their overall HP is so low that even just a single charge will wipe a half a dozen of them or so.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think when Baltoon, if he does go to Castle Age eventually, he's going to be able to get Jeanne d'Arc to do a Divine Wrath that's even more powerful, right? So you get a good charge on one of those. Now, Louis MT going to be going up with the King's Palace instead of the White Tower.
Sass sees it.
Uh-oh.
That is huge.
I don't think there's any
Landmark is going to go down, but it's the
help.
price to pay.
Oh, it is. Couple villagers. I mean, you do have King's Palace at the second town center, so it might be able to help a little bit. Looks like 3 villagers, maybe a 4th one ends up going down. I think Louis MT might have textiles. If that's the case, that saved him a lot of villagers, and a lot being about 3 or 4. King's Palace does go up. Looks like Sass is caught out of position. CSO with Knights and Sapahi gonna make quick work of that Archer ball. Military count continuing to dwindle for Oiling Boil, and they are stuck in Feudal Age. This is not looking good for them, Lidicor.
Oh, boy. I feel like Sass needs to be extra careful now with those archers. This is not the first time that he gets caught off guard. And this is something that CSO is leveraging. Louis MT took all the beating, but CSO was totally untouched in the meantime. I remember, military schools make up for that eco differential. Now it's 60 army against 26, and this is not a bad army. We're looking at 14 Lancers from the Ottoman player. A lot of them are heavily beaten up, but on the other side, Beltoon just has 6 Feudal Age French Knights. That is all that he has. And now there is still an opening right here. I think Sass wants to age looking at those resources, maybe Beltoon as well. But as you highlighted, there's a King's Palace out here for Louis MT. By the time they get up and by the time they clean this whole counter-attack up, I guess, Louis MT is going to be back on track in terms of eco. I feel like, just like in a previous game, there were some precarious moments for Elephant, but now they're kind of stabilizing and starting to take control over this game.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is a little bit of a mirror as we see this big fight. Take it through Jeanne d'Arc and a little bit of XP on some of those Knights. It gets plus 24 for those, so they're pretty an expensive chunk of XP. So let's see if more ends up going down. But CSO and Louis MT, I think this is a fight now that both of them are in Castle Age. They're getting all of their upgrades, right? I can see that those Longbowmen are a veteran status. There's a meta here as well with some of those Castle Age units. For Sass and Baltoon, yeah, I get they want to go Castle. Sass probably did hit the Castle Age button, but it's still, with the Ayubids and the Abbasids, it's a minute 45, whether you like it or not. Going up with the military wing, it might be able to get them a few Desert Raiders every minute, but I don't think there's many minutes left in this game.
I love the way that Elephant is torching houses. They understand that if they just take out the houses, you simply cannot get more military out here, and as highlighted to us by our Berserker Cow, Sass is actually dangerously close to getting housed. Sure, if you reach Castle Age, you can get the upgrades in, but even just slowing down your opponent a tiny bit when it comes to military production by having him housed is a massive thing. Looks like this fight is going to be taken under the TC, though. Remember, a lot of these Lancers were heavily beaten up, though, and you do have 20 Knights here. Now, from Baltoon, did Elephant overstay their welcome?
You know, that's a really good question, but as of right now, with those Castle Age units, it looks like they're starting to clean up a little bit. Military count, 76 to 28 in favor of CSO and Louis MT. A lot of Knights up here might be able to round out the backside. Some Spearmen from Louis MT did go down, even though they're Castle Age. They are susceptible to Town Center fire. It looks like Jeanne d'Arc will go down for about the 3rd time. So Jeanne d'Arc left without their hero, without the civilization that they necessarily need in this battle. But those Knights, they're going to stay in the Feudal Age. They ended up doing a little bit of cleanup, Lidicor, so I do agree. Maybe there was a little bit of an overstep, but I think this depends and comes down to something like a reproducibility factor. Looks like CSO and Louis MT, because of the military schools, because of their economies, they're going to be able to keep making those units. Baltoon and Sass, I'm not really quite sure, as Louis MT is going to get a little bit of a raid here on a lot of the gold villagers from Baltoon on the south side, continuing to make Spearmen, continuing to make Longbowmen. This might be a time where maybe they just beat their head against the wall until the wall breaks.
I gotta agree with you. I think it's a matter of sustainability here. Baltoon and Sass did a really good job cleaning this. In fact, I think Louis MT and CSO overcommitted a little. But at the same time, Louis MT is on 2 town centers thanks to his landmark. And CSO is getting a bunch of free production here from his military schools. So they can afford these casualties a lot more than their opponents can. Now, cleanups like this is not something that you can justify in the long run, however. You cannot afford to lose JD, but again, if you're Baltoon and Sass, your one saving grace can be taking very efficient fights. Not one like this, however. Louis MT and CSO, just a menace in the economy of the opposing team.
And that's so important for a civ like Baltoon, where, yeah, you get Consecrate on some of your stables just to make sure they are a little bit cheaper, but you still need villagers to get that food. You still need villagers to get that gold. So continuing to be rated, it looks like CSO and Louis MT want to take the fight around Baltoon's base more than anything. You can see how many stables he has. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stables, but they're not really producing as many knights as he might necessarily want. He's sitting there on about 200 food. He might not be able to produce that much. Using a little bit of a choke point, Baltoon is, while Divine Whirly-Doo from Baltoon is going to be able to hit from that Jeanne d'Arc level 3. There are Tapahi here, which will be pretty susceptible to some of those knights. Sass does have the Castle Age Spearman, adding a little bit of Gulam for front as well, so maybe a little bit of a crossbow change might end up being justified. That's what Louis does over there on the left side of the screen. Overall, not that bad of a hold from Baltoon and Sass. They were able to stop this push for now.
Really nice cleanup, and remember the previous game as well. CSO in the previous game, he was able to carry his team with the Knights because he always kept them alive, and we're seeing signs of that for Baltoon as well. There are some casualties, but he still has this ball of 20 Knights up. They're down by 20 eco now, so the recovery, or the road to recovery, is going to be long. But what they have to do is exactly what they're doing right now. Take cost-effective fights, make sure that you can sustain this kind of a slugfest by essentially cleaning up these small groups of troops like he's doing right now, and then essentially try to salvage the game in late game. It's going to be tough against the Ottomans and the English. We talked about this in the pregame. Oh, Monk. It's tempting, but the conversion isn't going to happen. I actually like this a lot for CSO. Conversion is a fancy thing, but it's likely not going to happen. At the same time, if you just know that the gold miners are there, you can hit them with the knights. You're playing for a victory. You're not playing for fancy win. You're just playing for a win.
Right. Style points don't mean anything on the score sheet. You're exactly right. As some of these knights on south side, there's a tactical conversion with a little bit of a choke point. Baltoon, you better run. Okay. Perfect. Good job. That knight group is pretty much what's keeping Baltoon and Sass in this game. Right? If half of them got converted, we would have saw the quickest GG that your eyes ever saw. That Monk ends up going down with that relic being in place. But take a look here with Louis MT and CSO. They're using the map that they've been given, right? They got a little bit of map control here. Baltoon went up at the Royal Institute trying to get a market, maybe trying to get something like Royal Bloodlines, and it is in the queue. They want to wait before they take that fight, but they have all 3 sacred sites. They're getting relics. This is something that's really important. When you get map control, take the resources that the map gives you, and Team Elephant's doing a great job of that.
Absolutely. And we talked about this. The longer this game goes, the more difficult it will be to leverage the mobility of the cavalry. This is not Dry Arabia. This is definitely not Himeyama. And now, with all these walls up, you see CSO and Louis MT are actually having that Sacred Site countdown. Still 7 minutes to go, but in a couple of minutes, it becomes a very real victory condition. And at the same time, Baltoon isn't able to do what CSO did in the previous game. He isn't able to just run around with the Knights, distract the opponent by doing all these raids. This is, again, a good cleanup here for him. He's going to be able to heal all these Knights back up. But one thing that we shouldn't forget is that right now, as you said, it's only the Knights when you look at Boiling Boil. And now, if you look at the composition from Louis MT and CSO, they're ready for it. 26 Janissaries, 16 Crossbows, 28 Spearmen. They are essentially all-inning a composition that nukes Knights because they know that Sass doesn't have a massive army right now.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Royal Institute ends up going down. And we talked about the sustainability as well, as we have a little bit of raid over here from CSO trying to find some villagers. Not only did Louis MT go for King's Palace, right? CSO also has a second town center, and he's been using it for a considerable amount of time. 80 villagers now for him. Louis MT is almost sitting at about 100. And this is the point of English that honestly upsets me, but also is very annoying, right? They just have the King's Palace. They have those town centers. Ooh, the target practice on Jeanne d'Arc, not even. The Maid of Orleans is going to take 500 gold to end up coming back. Baltoon's got to run in the opposite direction. You hit the nail on the head, Lidicor, with this army composition. If there is a knight within spitting distance of this composition, it will die. And now 5 Vanguards coming in from CSO on the back end. I know we talked about Castellade Mangonel maybe not being as good as it used to be. Well, maybe 1 not is that great. Let's go ahead and get 5, start throwing their rocks. And that's exactly what they end up doing. Crossbowmen, a couple of them end up going down. Looks like they're trying to get in on these Mangonels, but too many Janissaries. They're too high of a damage unit, right? A lot of these Knights end up going down, Pseudo-Imperial or not. Crossbowmen continuing to get hit by the Mangonel. The Mangonel's trying to get its rocks off on some of that ranged mass. There's just too much here. Lidicor, there's too much. Knights trying to make up that front line with Sassa Spearmen. They're going to go down incredibly quick. Jeanne d'Arc is level 4. You can see, oh, baby, she's got a cannon. I don't think that big royal cannon is going to end up going down. Now it's 1,000 gold to bring that Jeanne d'Arc back. And I don't know if you have enough gold in all of France to get her back. Baltoon says, I certainly don't. That's the end. That's your ball game. Sass ends up throwing the towel, too. It's a 2-0 for Team Elephant right now. Match point on the way.
Wow. I have very mixed feelings about this game, I feel. So first of all, one thing that we haven't had the time to touch on at the very end is that not only was Louis MT and CSO doing this, CSO was actually about to age with the Seagate Castle. So behind this, they actually had an Imperial Age coming as well. But what was more important is that, again, when you look at the overall game, it started out with that distraction by CSO and their ability to actually hit the opponent's ecos, slow them down. Whereas when you look at the other side, you really got to credit CSO and Louis MT for being able to preserve their villagers. There were some times where Baltoon and Sass were chasing 35 English villagers, and I don't think they got more than like 6 or 7. And that is not their fault. It is really just a testament of how well CSO and Louis MT have been playing and how well they've adapted to the chaotic nature of these first 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, both of those games kind of played out, obviously, with different civilizations, but very similar, right? With some of that aggression. I think it just goes to show how important it is, whether you're in a 1v1, whether you're in a team game or anything like that, to know how to hold, to know how to be defensive, to know how to minimize the losses when somebody is aggressing upon you, because you can really turn the tide, especially with a civ like English. Lidicor, you saw all of those villagers running around, right? They ended up going back to their farms and they're going to be just fine getting them. But think about it, with those 30 some villagers that were running around, if you lose 20 of them, right? You don't have textiles, you don't have wheelbarrow, whatever the case, they're just normal 50 health villagers. All of a sudden, Louis MT is scrambling. It takes so much longer for them to bolster the mass that they needed. But I mean, with Elephant, it's 2-0. I get it by the scoreboard, but the holds are also 2-0. We talked about in multiple instances, especially in this game, where we were like, that's the best timing you could ask for, right? One was going up to Castle. They attack again when another one was going up to Castle, like they hit the timings right when they needed to, and it still wasn't enough.
I gotta agree, and I think going forward, one of the big questions will be how or if Oiling will change up their play. Because the first 2 games, they've tried to play ultra aggressive. And I think Elephant has adapted to that very, very well. They understood that against these all-ins, they just need to be patient and wait out that moment until they can take that decisive fight. And that was the theme for the first 2 games. Decisive fight comes in, they clean up the enemies inside their base, and from there on out, it's essentially just a counterattack game. You can actually see that at the 18-minute mark in this game, where Oiling Boil kind of got cleaned up inside the enemy base, and from there on out, Elephant stabilizes, and they are the ones dictating the tempo of the game. I'm curious how or if Oiling Boil will change things up, because I feel like they're not far away. They have done some really good things in these first 2 games, but at the same time, they are down 0-2 in a single elimination stage. So it's essentially almost now or never at this point for them. Again, just looking at this early aggression, this is one of the actual big issues that they had here, losing this ram here early on. But there's going to be a moment later on in this game where you actually do have this whole contingent cleaned up. And that is the moment, I think, that kind of turns this game around.
Yeah, and you would think with a team like Oiling Boil going all in like this, right? With Assas going with that culture wing in the beginning, and Baltoon continuing to churn out knights like Jeanne d'Arc and the French are so good at churning out, you would think they'd have more of a military lead right now. right? You would think that even though their army value might be a little bit better just because of the knights from Baltoon, you'd think that they would, because they chose to go with this all-in strategy. The reason why it works is because you just end up having more, right? You're trying to delay or disregard some of the economic prowess that the other side really has, but the other side just went one town center too. So usually when you're being aggressive, Lidicor, and you can correct me when I'm wrong, as you're seeing Baltoon and Sass get kind of chewed up here on this first battle, usually you're going with this all-in aggression because you want to stop somebody from booming or getting too ahead economically. CSO and Louis MT, they weren't really going for that. They were just holding and playing with defender's advantage.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that Baltoon and Sass needs to address going into this. This is going to be the fight where they do get cleaned up. You see, right now it's 70 versus 40 army, but they're fighting inside an English base. And while this is happening, Louis MT is still in feudal age. Knights gone, however, and the archers had no protection. A cleanup. In the next few minutes, you actually see a rapid escalation of the army, and now you're looking at a fight where it's a 90 to 45 advantage in terms of the army count in the favor of Elephant.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean here, this is a point where we talked about this during the cast too. We were like, "Oh, is this a little bit of an overextension?" and blah blah blah. Maybe, I mean, maybe it was. You know, CSO and Louis ended up cleaning up, but the thing is, who cares, right? Who cares? You're able to. You had the English on King's Palace, and you had all your farms already. There was nothing you could do about it. Good luck trying to get in there and raid. And you had Ottomans on the other side with their military schools that ended up paying off. So the reproducibility, it was there. So they lost. They ended up getting some villagers or whatever out of Sass's side. They lost probably about 30 to 40 army. But again, who cares? And right now, this is something you probably should care about. It's match point for the Elephant.
It's Coastal Cliffs as well coming up. And this is, I feel like if there is a map where Sass and Baltoon can be a lot more successful with this chaotic early game aggression that they've been trying to play in the first two games, it's got to be Coastal Cliffs. It's a game, or it's a map where you're just so much more condensed. And I feel like now they're not going to change up their strategy. They do have two feudal age knight civilizations here, Rus and the French, facing off against the Japanese and the Ayyubids. And the game is ready to go. We'll be heading into game number 3 here. Elephant up 2-0 against Oiling Boyle.
Oh man, we're taking no time, no intermissions. I hope everyone, and nobody needed to go to the bathroom because you better sit down and buckle up. Match point for Elephant. We have on the Oiling Boyle side, Baltoon playing as the French in the color blue, Sass playing as the Rus in the color teal. Lidicor, I'm going to say it again. This is your team. I know you corrected me. I'm still saying it. What's on the other side? Tell me.
Japanese Ayyubids coming up here for Elephant. Not a combination, again, that I would have expected. But then again, this series has been quite different from most of the series we've seen in this tournament. A lot of early game aggression, an incredible amount of chaos. So I'm wondering how the Ayyubids and the Japanese will be leveraged over here. In particular, Ayyubids are probably going to be your Desert Raider kind of an approach. And as Kao is highlighting to us, a lot of options to wall here to the front here for CSO. He's got his little fortress here in this corner. But again, the thing I want to highlight is with the Ayyubids, you can go Desert Raiders early on. You can deal with French Knights, maybe Rus Knights. I don't know if this is going to be a double Knight play from Baltoon and Sass. I feel like just seeing what they've done in the previous game, I think the most likely scenario for Baltoon and Sass would be Knights from the French, and then maybe that classic Rus heavy feudal archer rush, trying to finish the game quickly. It's a condensed map, and I think this is actually a good approach for them to take. I don't know how the Japanese plays into this, though. Like, what's going to be your unit comp? Are you just trying to fast castle? I don't know.
Yeah, you know, it seems like Japanese is rather, especially in the 1v1 setting, Japanese is pretty one-dimensional, right? I mean, the feudal age and their ability to do things in feudal age, it's just not there, right? It's too slow. They try to change the Daimyo Palace to have 225 stone so you can get your bannermen pretty quickly. But think of it as, if you want to mine stone on a map like Coastal Cliffs, good luck, because there's no starting stone for these players. Every stone that you see out here is technically a quote-unquote secondary stone. So you got to go out there if you're going to end up mining it. And looks like Louis FT is not going to be doing that. Baltoon going with School Cavalry, obviously. Louis MT going with the Cura. The storehouse going to be acting as a lumber camp, and those farms are going to be on the backside, which is going to be safe for him. CSO going with the economic wing, getting 3 extra villagers. So no culture wing, no shenanigans here for economic wing. You like this pick a little bit more, Lidicor?
Interesting idea. I think, again, if you're looking at Elephant, you probably just want to stay on course. You've managed to deal with the early aggression coming out of Sass and Balton in the first 2 games. So just knowing how well defensible that map is for CSO with all these forests on the front, I feel like, again, you just want to play the same game here. Play it slow, play defensive, and see what Baltoon and Sass are up to, and just adapt your playstyle to that.
It looks like, I mean, speaking of their playstyle, Sass is going up with the Golden Gate, really making a resurgence for the Roos and Golden Gate, and I love it. The Golden Gate is such a good landmark. I think people forgot about it just because of the Kremlin being as so good as it is. The Golden Gate, you could basically just give the gate 100 resources, and they're like, here, we miscounted. That's 150. Just take it, man. Like, you got it. So you're able to help with your macro a little bit if your macro's a little on the fritz, and you just get 50 extra resources a minute because that's how long a ticket is for essentially the rest of the game. You know, in Feudal Age, in Castle Age, that really, really helps you getting those extra 50 because you could do things like have more archers in a feudal push or go for some kind of fast castle shenanigans if that's what Sass wants to do. Baltoon going to be going up with that knight very, very quickly. I'm curious to see what CSO ends up doing with these 3 extra villagers because Japanese on the other side, they're not somebody who likes to deal with a feudal age something. You know, they like to kind of hang out until Castle Age to get their mounted samurai. So if CSO goes for some fast castle, I don't know if they're going to have any kind of presence on the map.
Yeah, I love this little harassment over here. If you have a couple of leftover scouts, might as well go for this. If you just force 1 villager to repair this this mining camp, that's already something. First knight is going to be coming out here for Baltoon. We haven't really seen much from Sass, and it's going to be a defensive tower coming in here from Louis MT. This is one of the things that they've been very active on in the first 2 games, just dropping these defensive towers everywhere to make sure that these raids cannot do a lot of damage. This tower is going to be pretty badly beaten up, by the way, by all those, by all that torching. In fact, this is actually a very heavy commitment from Louis MT that had to be drawn for this tower to be completed.
Yeah, and that's time you just don't want to spend, right? You don't want to spend 8 villagers trying to build an outpost. You don't want to spend villager time trying to repair an outpost, right? Sass on the other side, let's talk about that big beefy outpost. That's the outpost your girlfriends tell you not to worry about. That wooden fortress housing 8 instead of 5, having the increased amount of health is really going to help you. A couple hunting cabins with a little bit of trickle of gold as well. Looks like Sass is going into archers. He has an archery range. That first archer did hit the battlefield. So it looks like they're going to try to get some feudal aggression where Louis MT on the other side, he's getting some desert raiders. It looks like there's one out there and one in the queue, but he's still kind of hoarding a little bit. You know, he's got like 250 food. He's kind of has 7 on gold as well. Might he be trying to get to Castle Age or create a presence for Louis MT? You can see the amount of resources he has, right? So these desert raiders are going to help keep the knights at bay while Louis MT has a little bit of time to get there because we all know those mounted samurai, Lidicor, they're such a dangerous unit.
Yeah, I'm starting to see the game plan here for CSO and Louis. The thing is that Archer plus Knight, if they are taking a direct battle, these Desert Raiders are simply insufficient to hold them. But the idea is that the Archers take some time to build up in numbers. It takes some time until they get to the other side of the map. The most imminent threat to the fast-castling Japanese player are the Knights, and you can shadow them with a couple of Desert Raiders, and as you said, just buy time for the Japanese player to do this. And this is a big piece of information here for Sass. He spots 6 gold miners. And one of the things to look at when you look at Feudal Age play, especially for a civilization that's not making gold-heavy units in Feudal, if you see 6, 7 or so gold miners, that's usually an indication that your opponent is going Castle Age. So Sass knows fully well that this is a fast castle play.
Oh, absolutely. And I think now they know at this point, too, with those 6 gold miners, they're like, hey, we kind of have a small window here. You know, Japan isn't really going to try to make units. He's going to rely on CSO, right? He's going to rely on the Iobits to make sure he gets some of that map control. But now it's Sass getting some archers. He's got 11 now and continuing to add more and more. Might there be too many archers for those Desert Raiders to do something about? Those Desert Raiders, even though I hardly know her, they have a melee armor of 5, range armor of 0. So a lot of those archers will end up taking down some Desert Raiders. Looks like Baltoon getting a little cheeky with this tower, and this is all because of where the tower was placed by Louis MT. It might have been a little bit of a panic tower, but you see with that tower, if that does have the ability to go up, it's going to be pretty difficult for Louis MT to get gold. But Lidacor, as soon as I say that, he's already working on suspending a gate in midair, floating gate starting to get built.
Now, here's the thing. Getting to Castle Age is one thing, but if you cannot get gold, you're not going to be able to afford those mounted samurai. And that's the game plan here for Baltoon and Sass. If you're able to deny the gold, even if you have that extra production from your stables boosted by the Yorishiro, it's not going to be enough. You simply don't have the gold to produce those units. So if you're Baltoon and Sass, you are just looking for this gold mine. Once Castle Age hits, I'm sure they are going to dive. And right now, Louis is sitting on just 33 gold in the bank. That is alarming. What is this? Some stone being mined here from Baltoon, probably for the tower right here. You do have 23 archers. This is no joke, and I feel like there were moments in this series where Louis MT and CSO were in dangerous spots, but I feel like this might have been the biggest danger that they faced in this series so far.
Yeah, and I think it's because most of the time in those games previously, they weren't going for this like super fast castle, right? And now Japan is. They did hit Castle Age. Sass is going to be able to get a battering ram out there. The Roos wood economy is just there all the time. Desert Raiders are going to be able to take a fight with these Knights. Now remember, Knights, not only do they get the unease of the Raiders, their melee hits aren't as good because of the armor of the Desert Raiders, and those Desert Raiders do a little bit of extra damage. And if they start to run away, they can just pull the bows out, start sniping. So these Knights aren't going to be in this battle too much. It's just Sass with those archers and the battering ram. He's got 2 mounted samurai. A lot of them are taking it. I was expecting this to happen, of course. CSO is now slinging Louis to try to get as many mounted samurai as possible. He does a really great job pulling that mounted samurai out of the battle really weak, because remember that Shinto priest you get with the floating gate, you're going to be able to heal that thing back up. And then it's like getting another mounted samurai that you otherwise wouldn't have had. So yeah, might need to vacate that gold a little bit. But if CSO puts more villagers on gold and slings Louis MT a little bit of gold, he might have enough mounted samurai to really take this fight.
Now, this is some really good synergy for CSO and Louis MT. Because these mounted samurai are virtually invincible to all these archers. And it's not even the sling. The sling is a nice little touch here, but it's the fact that these knights from Baltoon have been isolated from these archers. The ram goes down way too easily. And you see a lot of these knights are heavily beaten up here because of those Desert Raiders. I absolutely love how these Desert Raiders are just posturing in the middle of the map. And all they want to do is ignore every archer that comes in, deal with the knights. If you can isolate this group of archers from Sass, from those knights, the mounted samurai will just maul them down. And now you're looking at 7 mounted samurai. I feel like the window might be closing very rapidly here for Oil and Boil.
I absolutely agree with you. And it just depends on how many mounted samurai he's able to get, right? He's continuing to use the Yorishiro infused stable. He's got about 7. Thinking maybe a couple more you might want to take a fight. Desert Raiders have to be wary of some of those archers. Now, this is when Baltoon and Sass really need that choreography. Really need that synchronicity. Louis MT trying to take down that outpost from Baltoon, but we'll have to run in the opposite direction just because of the amount of Royal Knights that are there. Stable continuing to pump out. There's 2 stables with Yorishiros in there. So he is a madman with how much he is trying to get all of these mounted samurai, because he knows that's the crux. That's the win condition, right? They're good against the feudal Royal Knights. They're good against the archers. And CSO is going to continue to sling. He sent 400 gold total. So he's able to continue the mounted samurai production, and now it's just a matter of time. CSO adding in a little bit of horsemen because he's using all of his gold, right? They're sending it to Louis. So a lot of this gold is going to be made in mounted samurai. Now it's just a matter of time. Sass does have, look how many archers he has. Lidacor, 45 total. No signs of slowing down.
It's a huge wall of archers. It's a shame that they are getting very, very useless as time goes on, because now horsemen are being mixed in. We have 13 mounted samurai. All are on full HP, by the way. One thing that Louis MT did was heal all of those back up with the Shinto priests he had. So I feel like the archer count is rising very rapidly. But if Baltoon and Sass aren't able to take a decisive fight very soon, the Mounted Samurai will be enough to deal with this. Those are Castle Age Mounted Samurai. This is a good opportunity, though, breaking through the walls. And this is exactly what they need. They need to do a lot of damage over here. Otherwise, if they ever get cleaned up and they don't do enough damage, it's game over. Mounted Samurai closing in from the south, though.
Yeah, and I think some of those archers are going to end up going down. Very good use of his Mounted Samurai. Try to get some reinforcements. On the flip side, Baltoon and Sass idling a lot of villagers from CSO. A lot of them had to run into that town center. This delectable food patch that you have here, you have a berry patch, you have a deer patch over here as well, is going to be null and void for a little bit of time. But CSO, he has so much gold. Oh my God, he's got 1,200 gold. He will be able to sling the Louis MT if he needs to. Looks like those Desert Raiders don't really want to take a fight. They more so want to get into the bases and do some counter raiding. And this is textbook CSO, Lidicor. This is the third game in a row that we're watching CSO be like, hey, we're getting aggressed upon, so let me just bypass that completely and start taking down some villagers. And now there's a horde of archers going right up against those Mounted Samurai. And I got to tell you, I don't like those archers' chances. Looks like Royal Knights from Baltoon on the south side trying to get a little bit of a charge on the Mounted Samurai, making them back up in the opposite direction. But I want to direct your attention, Lidicor, as they take that fight, the Royal Knights back up. Oh my, you know what?
That is just it.
I don't even, you know what? Don't worry about the attention. I was going to mention something. Don't even worry about it. It's 3-0. Okay. Let's just all move on. Okay. CSO and Louis getting that 3-game sweep of Oiling Boyle. I was going to mention the Mounted Samurai numbers to the Royal Knight numbers, and they were pretty much even. But however, 13 minutes, 14 minutes of a game. Very, very quick on Coastal Cliffs. And that's what happens when you're on the cliffs, right? Only 75% of the map is available to you. So you're going to be able to do things like getting raids, disrupt resources, all that kind of stuff. You can take a look at the stats that we have here for you. It looks like just for Louis and CSO, they never had that military value lead, but it wasn't about the amount of units that they had. It was about the quality of the units that they had. And the Mounted Samurai were that quality of unit that there was nothing that Baltoon and Sass could make that could deal with them.
You look back at this game, I feel like we have seen a very, very similar pattern across this series. A lot of aggression from Baltoon and Sass, but good adaptation from CSO and Louis MT. And at the same time, at some point, you kind of touched on the fact that you had a lot of idle time forced. And that has been, I think, the other recurring theme in this entire series. Always the idle time, but never the villager kills. Maybe except for game number 1, but in most cases, Louis MT and CSO got away with most of their wills. And that is part of the reason why they were able to retain a good economy under a lot of pressure. And then their coordination has just been masterful. I think both Louis MT have used and CSO have used their cavalry exceptionally well in this game. But you got to credit CSO throughout this series. He's been the master of cavalry, and he's been so good when it comes to seeing these openings and seeing all these opportunities for raids.
Yeah, I think CSO was without a doubt the MVP of this one. You know, a lot of people know Louis MT in the 1v1 setting. He's a tremendously good player, young player, very talented. But CSO getting those raids while being defensive at the same time, it's just it's really tough to stop. And you saw on the graphs here, you talked about APM, right? CSO was just about 120 APM for just about every game. It makes me look bad because I think I have more, and I'm stuck in diamonds. So a lot of the APM that I use must be garbage, KP.
You're too focused on your horse archer micro. You need to get into the desert raider micro. Okay, I'm sorry, mate. The year of the horse has passed. It's the year of the camel, and that's someone that the Elephanto boys have done so fantastically. So a Frio and Oil and Boil, we will see no more of them. Commiserations of Baltoon, Sassy, and Bella, who's been sitting on the sideline waiting for a call to be tagged in here. I mean, you know, maybe she could have got us a 4th game. We'd have to see. But yeah, this is really cool. Like, I love what you guys are saying about these two. I think one thing we noticed straight away, Lytical, is this desire to be aggressive. I don't think Baltoon and Sassy were wrong for that, because let's be totally real. Louis MT and CSO, Louis in particular, has a reputation for that late game. You can't let them get there.
And that's what, you know, that's
Oh
what
yeah,
it
go
kind
go
of.
ahead. Go ahead.
All right, my name's not Lidicor. I'm gonna keep
You're
talking.
Lidicor now. You're
The-
Liditim.
Oh, let it. Okay, Cal, could you change that on the bottom? But so 10-4 Tim's not there anymore. Thank you. The just the amount of things that both CSO was able to do, and what Oiling Boil, you talked about some of the aggression that was there, right? There was a lot of aggression, and we saw that from all of the replays. We saw that from probably the first 10 or 11 minutes into the game. We kept seeing Baltoon and Sass be aggressive. And then we were like, okay, what did they do though?
Yeah. It's
You
so
know?
hard to breach them, right? And I think the other cool thing is the way that they play off of each other. CSO, as you mentioned, King Cavalry is that bodyguard, Lu MT thrives in that late game. I mean, also the way they drafted Lidical. Like, think about Ibid Japanese in a one-on-one. Japan hates playing against Rus. They love playing against French. Ibid's pads against both. I think this is an elegant approach with Sin, is that the Elephant's experience in team environments is definitely showing through. That's not to discredit Baltoon and Sassy, but I definitely saw Baltoon as like, this was his signature play being on the French, right? It's like his go-to Civ. And even that wasn't good enough to even put a dent in the Elephant Boys.
I've been saying this for a long time. When you compare AoE 4 nowadays versus AoE 4 a couple of years ago, or even just a couple of months ago, players have gotten so much better in defending. When you look back at the early days of AoE 4, players, like most of the builds were super aggro. I remember the days where it was only French Knights full feudal, or these crazy Rus archer rushes full all-ins, and they worked. But players have gotten so much better when it comes to defending that now it's very, very difficult to pull off these all-in style attacks. And CSO and Louis MT have shown that really well in the series. They buffered up their attack. They bought time. They sometimes even sacrificed a couple of villagers for that. But once they had that cleanup, that second layer was just not there for Baltoon and Sass.